Hello, friends. Not easy to come and talk after somebody like Subhash has spoken, but I'll try. I'll share some glimpses of the Muslim women's struggle for gender justice and mainly focusing on the movement against triple talaq and the movement for entry into the Haji Ali dargah. I have been part of this movement. I have been a petitioner in both these petitions in the Bombay High Court for women's entry into Haji Ali and in the Supreme Court for abolition of triple talaq. Uh, that said, it is not at all my proposition that women from other communities are not, bearing the brunt of patriarchy. Because as we know, patriarchy is one of the hugest malaces that faces humankind today, and it has been the case ever since. So, irrespective of which part of the world you belong to, be it the developed world, be it Southeast Asia, or be it South Asia, irrespective of which faith background you are coming from, we all bear the brunt of patriarchy, and that includes, of course, the women themselves, that also includes the men and other genders about which we have had some discussion in the morning. So why is it that something as abominable as triple talaq is a major issue even in India, which is the world's largest democracy? So, in order to reflect on that question, we need to have some brief understanding about how religion has been used and abused by certain dominant sections who have appointed themselves as custodians of religion, or who have appointed themselves as people who will insist to speak on behalf of the entire Muslim community. And I'm sure most of you can guess by now, I'm referring to people such as the Personal Law Board, who have come out very openly to preserve the male status quo, who have through their affidavit filed in the Supreme Court said they've tried to justify triple talaq, they've tried to justify polygamy, they've tried to justify very very inhuman practices, and all of this they have tried to do in the name of religion. But actually, it is not about religion. It is, I would say, it is about patriarchy masquerading as religion. So, if we take a brief look at what is the Quranic position on triple talaq, then you'll be shocked to know that there is no mention of triple talaq in the Quran. Quran, which is the holiest book of the Muslims, in that book, divorce is considered something very bad and must be avoided at all costs. However, since we are human beings, there can be differences, there can be reasons why a husband and a wife do not want to live together, in which case divorce can happen as per the Quran. But it should happen at the end of an elaborate procedure involving reconciliation between, dialogue between the husband and wife. If that fails, involving family members to mediate between the two, try and resolve the issues. And this procedure should go on minimum for a period of 90 days. So, it is somewhat similar to the kind of cooling off period in the Hindu marriage. Today, a Hindu couple wants divorce, it's not as though they just walk it to the court and they will get the divorce tomorrow. they have to try and reconcile for 6 months. That is the Hindu Marriage Act. So the point I'm trying to make is that the Quran nowhere talks about triple talaq, and yet we found in our study, which was conducted across the country, that triple talaq is the commonest method of divorce in our country. Howsoever, the personal law board and the religious leadership and political sections were in denial. Similarly, on the question of polygamy also, Islam was a religion which came 1400 years ago, and that time the context was very different. And I firmly believe that as per the Quran, there is no permission for polygamy in today's context. Even at that time, polygamy was permitted under strict conditions, and it was never encouraged. So there is a difference between permission under strict conditions and encouragement. That kind of context doesn't exist today. And over and above, there's a verse in the Quran where Allah says that if you have to have more than one wife, you have to equally provide for both the wives. Even if you are able to equally provide for both the wives, you have to be equally just to both the wives, which even if you wish, you cannot be, therefore marry only one. So it is somewhere, down the ages, because of the dominance of orthodox and patriarchal forces who have interpreted and misinterpreted the Quranic injunctions to suit their own patriarchal dominance at the utter detriment of women. It is owing to this kind of male hegemony, which we call patriarchy. It's owing to that we have practices such as triple talaq and polygamy taking place in a democracy such as India today. Now, we also need to look at the other factor, because the Muslim women are entitled to gender justice as per the Quran, and they are as entitled to gender justice as per the Constitution of India. Now, various articles of the Constitution pertaining to gender justice, gender equality, and freedom from discrimination, notwithstanding, this kind of discrimination of Muslim women has continued even 70 years after India's independence. And here we need to, bring in the kind of politics which has prevailed in our country. If there is no law today against triple talaq, it speaks volumes, about the kind of collusion that the political class has made with the likes of the personal law board. It speaks about the failure of the elected representatives, of those who sit in the parliament. It is their failure to fulfill their constitutional obligation of gender justice to the women. It is because of, this nexus between the political class and the conservative forces in the Muslim community that even 70 years after India's independence, we do not have a codified Muslim family law in our country. So we have the Hindu Marriage Act, we have the Hindu Succession Act, we have some, host of 7-8 laws which are based on the Hindu religious texts, which govern the matters pertaining to marriage, divorce, what we call inheritance, all matters pertaining to family. They are governed by laws made by the parliament, even as they may be based on the Hindu religious texts. Similarly, we have something called the Christian Marriage Act, which is an old act. If I'm not mistaken, it's an act of 1856 or thereabout, but it has been repeatedly amended by our parliament. As a result, till a few years ago, if you remember, those in the group here who are slightly older will remember that some years ago, maybe about 15 or so years ago, Christian women were not entitled to initiate divorce, which is not the case now. Thanks to the amendment passed by the parliament, the Christian community is entitled to, the woman as well as the man, both can obtain divorce under the Indian Divorce Act. So the point I'm trying to make is that reform in personal laws is a responsibility of the parliament, thereby enabling women citizens to obtain justice, a responsibility in which our elected leaders have failed. And that is precisely what has got challenged by the ordinary Muslim women having approached the Supreme Court for the abolition of triple talaq. I'll also briefly mention here about the Haji Ali dargah petition. Many of us, because like Ahmedabad is very close to Bombay, and all Ahmedabadis always go to Bombay, and many of you must have been to the Haji Ali dargah, and it is a Sufi shrine. Even we went there till as recently as 2011. We went right up to the mazar, that is the sanctum sanctorum, and we offered whatever ziyarat or whatever, and then we came back. Yet again, when we went there, when I say we, I mean a group of women belonging to my organization. We went there again in 2012, and we were horrified that they had placed, those steel barricades, and we were stopped and we were told, औरतें आप रुक जाइए, औरतें यहाँ से आगे नहीं जा सकती. तो we said why? हम पिछले साल तो आई थी सबके सब. What has changed? They said नहीं, अब औरतों को आना मनाही है, आप यहीं ठहर जाएं और आप यहीं से आपको जो करना है कर लें. So being activists and being members of the Muslim women's group which is fighting against patriarchy and for women's equality, we were not the ones to accept that. So we sort of embarked on a long process of dialogue, of writing letters. We tried to sort it out through discussion, but we did not succeed. We did not succeed because the Haji Ali Trust thought that we were mere women, and they felt that they do not need to engage with the women. They felt that they were not answerable to the women, and they said that they are following Sharia. Sharia is Islamic law in their, and that's what they are following. So then we wanted to know that what is the kind of Sharia which till 2011 allowed us to go right up to the mazar and has changed in 2012, and it has changed for the worse. So that is how the whole process started, and finally we had no recourse, and we were forced to kind of approach the Bombay High Court, which we did. And the Bombay High Court, at the end of about 2.5 years, in August 2016, the Bombay High Court ruled in our favor, and we won the case about the women's entry. Another point I want to highlight is the victory in the Haji Ali matter for the women, as well as the victory in the triple talaq matter, again, at the behest of the women, are two of the landmark or historical achievements in the recent past as far as women's movement is concerned. And I say this not because I'm part of this movement, but I say this because how very ordinary women coming from very, very deprived socio-economic background. Most of the women who have, who have been forced to drop out at the level of 5th standard, 6th standard, 10th standard, most of them have, not crossed 10th standard, but yet they fought so bravely, and they fought through democratic means. We have to understand that when a Muslim woman, a woman coming from a Muslim background, when there is so much politics that has happened in the name of the Muslims and the question of citizenship and the kind of politics, which has been played out in our country in the name of upholding secularism. And this applies to all the political parties. It applies to those in the government. It applies to those in the opposition. It applies to all of them. It must be, taking a lot of courage, lot of resolve, lot of determination for ordinary women to approach the Supreme Court. And by that act, these women are affirming their faith in democracy. These women are saying that Allah has made me equal to anybody. Allah has not discriminated between man and woman. So why should I tolerate this kind of discrimination which is coming to me in the name of religion? So that is a very historic development where women folk from a very marginalized community, and I must say that the Muslims, who are the largest minority, it is amongst the most deprived communities in our country. A large section of the community, over 90% of it, is living under extreme poverty, extreme educational backwardness, extreme circumstances where they are not able to find jobs, they are not able to find work. There is the whole question of discrimination, there's a whole question of communalism, and to top it all, there's a whole question of a lack of leadership. Because, when we look at the deprived communities in our country, the Muslim community is singularly, I would say, unfortunate community, for the lack of, a better word, where there has been no leadership worth the name. And whatever exists by way of leadership is strictly male, is entirely conservative. It's by definition patriarchal, male dominated. And it's the ordinary women who fought the whole, struggle for, be it the entry into Haji Ali dargah or be it the struggle against triple talaq. It's these ordinary women who have challenged the domination and the hegemony of this very well established forces. And the fact that these forces are also supported by certain, political forces. So that makes the fight all the more complicated. And the last point that I want to make is that this movement was, made possible, of course, because of the initiative, the courage, and the leadership of the Muslim women themselves. But it is equally important that this movement was supported across the country by all women, coming from different backgrounds. Women, and this event here, this TED Talk organized by the Ahmedabad University, where I have been given time to share about this movement, is also part of that support. So we have been supported by ordinary people all over the country, by women as well as by men. Women in universities, the student community, the women in the media, women in the police, everywhere they have supported it and they have made it their fight. And that is how, despite of the fact that we were up against such well entrenched and well established forces, we could sort of see light at the end of the day. That said, our work is not over, because we are still fighting against the kind of legal discrimination that we are facing. We, just like every other community is governed by a law, no matter based on their respective faiths, but the law passed by the Parliament of India. Similarly, we are also entitled to a Muslim family law, and we are, pressurizing the parliamentarians, the government, the opposition, everybody to give us, that kind of a law, in order that the Muslim women do not get, a continued kind of suffering because of practices such as triple talaq, such as halala, such as polygamy. And at the same time, there is a lot the Quran has to offer by way of affirmative action for the women. the whole idea of meher, which is the opposite of dowry. We give dowry, to our daughter, but in the religion of Islam, meher is the right of a woman at the time of marriage. She can ask her to be groom for a man mangi rakam. वो चाहे तो घर मांग सकती है, वो जो चाहे वो मांग सकती है. So but that right has been diluted thanks to the orthodoxy and the patriarchy in our society. Similarly, there are rights about women sharing property, and like I said, there is no polygamy. Like I said, the divorce has to happen only through a mutual reconciliation and discussion method. So there are so many such affirmative rights which are offered by the religion, which we want to be translated into law. And so that struggle continues. And I'm grateful to the Ahmedabad University and to all of you for giving me this opportunity to share this struggle. Thank you.